What's up, guys? Welcome to Knockers on the Bottom. I'm your host, Jay Mill. Jay Miller, if you like. So let's get into it. So today, excuse me, the Cowboys take on the Chargers with pretty much nothing to play for. Philadelphia won last night, so that officially eliminated the Cowboys from any playoff contention, even though they were pretty much already eliminated once they lost to Minnesota anyway. Um, and looking at it in hindsight, they had an uphill climb no matter what, just because of the hole that they dug themselves earlier in the season. One of the things that sucks is hearing the people out and about going, oh, they had bad losses to Chicago and they had bad losses to Carolina. Carolina and Chicago are not bad losses. Those two teams are both better than you. They're both better than you. Chicago is better than you by a lot, and Carolina's slightly better than you. If you probably played Carolina in that game, 6 times, you'd probably go 3-3 against Carolina. Maybe with the additions, maybe you beat them now. But I think a lot of people forget because, I hear stuff like, oh, the offense played horrible in that game. They scored 27 points. They lost in a last second field goal 30-27 in Carolina, like on the road. The offense didn't play bad. The team didn't get like blown out. That was not a bad loss, especially looking at it now. And going into that game, Carolina had a better record than you. So, just my soapbox anyway. But yeah, so they dug themselves a hole. I took a while after Detroit to pretty much mourn the season. So once they lost to Minnesota, it really didn't affect me the same way as it did when they lost to Detroit. And honestly, if we're being real about it, uh, expecting Philly to basically, even if, let's say, they had won against Detroit or they won against Minnesota, right? Let's say they split that matchup. Going into today, that means they would have been 7-6-1 going into today's game. So a loss today probably would have clinched it for Philly. I just say that to say, no matter what, because of the way the season started and all the problems defensively and some of the problems offensively, but not as heavily weighted as it is defensively, there's pretty much no way that the Cowboys uh, would have been able to come back and win the division. Now, if they win some of these other games, maybe they'd still be in the wild card hunt. We can have that discussion. That's a little bit different. If you find a way to pull out one of those two games against Minnesota and Detroit, you're probably not eliminated today. You're probably playing for something. And then if you get past this game and you find a way to win it, who knows what could have happened if you had beat the Giants and beat the Commanders and finish out your season, pretty much on like a 6-1 stretch. Now, I see a lot of people talking about there's nothing to play for. I disagree with that. There are things to play for. I always point back to Detroit 3 years ago when Dan Campbell took over as head coach and they started off the season something stupid like 1-7 or something like that, or 1-8. They were ridiculously bad. But then they won like 6 of their last 8 games. So whatever the starting record is, maybe it was 1-7, and then they went like 6-2 down the stretch, and won a bunch of their final games. And then they had a game where they were able to knock their division rival out of the playoffs. All of that kind of springboarded them into the next season being one of the better teams in the league. And then since that point, they've been one of the better teams in the league. So basically, from that point on, from that 1-7 or 1-8 start, whatever it was, they finished 6-2, and then the following year had a fantastic record, and then the following year had another good record, and now this year, they've had some injuries, they're dealing with things, but they're still 8-5. So I mean, the team has built an identity, built a culture based on winning. And I personally feel like it started from that streak at the end of the season. The Cowboys have a chance to do something very similar, right? Since the bye week, they are 3-2. If for some reason they're able to find a way to beat the Chargers this week and then, win against the Commanders, win against the Giants, I don't care what personnel is on the field. We'll get to that in a minute. But if they find a way to do that culture-wise and finish in the season 6-2 after starting the season 3-5-1, that has to count. That has to count for something. They'll be one of the hottest teams finishing the season and then going into next year. So I mean, next year's schedule isn't going to do them any favors. just throwing it out there, because I'm pretty sure, just if memory serves me correct, they're going to play the NFC West. So they're going to play not the Chargers. They're going to play the Rams. They're going to play the Seahawks. They're going to play the 49ers, and they're going to play the Cardinals again. So that's going to be very interesting. Plus, they're going to play whoever finishes wherever in their standings in the NFC. So that could be, a matchup with the Falcons. That could be a matchup with, the Minnesota Vikings again, or the Bears or the Packers, whoever. But it's going to be one of those teams again. And then I'm pretty sure that they play the AFC, the AFC East. So they're probably going to play like the Bills, the Patriots. It's going to be an interesting situation for them next year, going into that schedule. So the schedule is going to be just as tough next year. So what I would like to see them do is finish strong, because the schedule is going to do you no favors, and get your team, playing well. Let's say even if you lose to the Chargers and you win the next two, okay, 5-3 down the stretch, that's better than where you started. And give something for you to build on, right? That's what we're looking for. For my pro tankers out there, I've never been a pro tanker, so I don't want to see them lose every game for a better draft pick. I don't care, because it honestly, better draft pick doesn't mean anything if you draft the wrong player. Better draft pick doesn't mean anything if you draft the right player. I mean, the Cowboys have drafted CeeDee Lamb later in the first round, Dez Bryant later in the first round, Tyler Smith later in the first round, the center from a few years ago that had to retire early later in the first round, actually with the 30th pick. So, I mean, just as many times as they, have missed on like a Mozzie Smith, or missed on a Taco Charlton, or missed on I'm forgetting, it's escaping me right now, but the defensive tackle Tristan Hill, just as many times they missed late in the first round with those guys, they've hit late in the first round too. So it doesn't matter. And honestly, if they end up 8-1 or 9-7-1, they're going to be drafting what, 17th? It's not like they're going to be drafting 30th all of a sudden. And then on top of that, they have 2 first round picks. So the tanking thing isn't going to matter, because I believe right now they sit at 14th. The highest they can get is probably like 12th. So, I mean, and the lowest they can drop, like I said, is maybe 17th, 18th. You're talking a difference of 2 to 5 spots. I just don't see that being a reason to just go out and tank, basically. Now, you can do some other things to put yourself in position for next year, which is make sure you're being careful with Dak Prescott. Make sure you're being careful with CeeDee Lamb. Make sure you're being careful with Tyler Smith. Anybody that you consider a cornerstone, like how they just did with Deron Bland. He's on IR. He's, got a foot issue. I don't know how bad that issue would have kept him out had the Cowboys, let's say, won the last 2 games or won one of the last 2 games. I'm not necessarily sure Deron Bland will be on IR right now, because I believe he's been playing with that issue for weeks. So there's just a lot of different things. But let's get to today. Trayvon Diggs is going to play, which is going to be interesting after all the stuff back and forth. Now, all of a sudden, with Deron Bland going on IR, hey, Trayvon, we need you. We're short at the position. That's interesting. Let's see what happens. I would like to see now maybe some Jadon Blue, see what he can give you as far as juice in the running game. I know Phil Maffa has been activated, but I don't think he's practiced enough yet to kind of be up today. But we'll see. The game starts here in about 40 minutes or so. So we'll know what's going on. My prediction on today's game, I actually think the Chargers have, a very good defense. They have a lot to play for. They have an interesting offense, but they have a lot of issues, offensive line injuries. But the Cowboys haven't been able to take advantage of that all year long. So without knowing if Quinnen's playing, and honestly, even if he was playing, one man can't just do everything himself. So even if he's getting pressures and he's getting sacks, if he has a tremendous game, he's getting like 6 or 7 pressures, maybe a sack, maybe 2 if he goes wild. That's not going to be enough. So I have the Chargers beating the Cowboys, something like 27-17. I think the Cowboys are going to struggle against this Chargers defense. And without having anything to play for, I think they'll play hard, but I just think they're not talented enough, and they don't have enough to get it done. So that's my prediction: 27-17. Chargers win, and then we go into the next couple of weeks and see what happens. But thank you guys so much for tuning in. Hit me up on Twitter at jmilliYL. Hit me up at knockersonthebottom at outlook.com, knockersonthebottom at gmail.com. Any questions, any comments you have. But yeah, I love you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Leave comments below as well. Like, subscribe, all that. But until next time, I'm your host, J Mill. J Mill if you like. This has been Knockers on the Bottom. Peace.